What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition here, the Takeaways Podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Fang, and today we are brought to you by Station Casinos, STN Sports. Download the mobile app today. We're also presented to you on Blue Wire Podcast with Liquid Death, which probably could have helped revive a 49er quarterback or two, Eytan Shander, my guest joining me today from Philadelphia, Fox 29, a betting analyst here. And we have brought you on to talk about these Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eytan, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic, Heidi. It's a pleasure to see you. I know we go way back, so I can say this with all of our friendship and everything intact. Go Birds!
There's nothing you can do when one team moves on. You can sit there and cry and stomp your feet about it all you want, but in the end, the Eagles had more quarterbacks.
That's it. That's exactly it. That's the only thing that we could take away from this football game was the Eagles had more quarterbacks than the Niners. I'm with you. Okay. I'll leave it with that.
As long as we agree on that.
Yeah.
But Eytan, I wanted to start talking about the Super Bowl. The Eagles, like we said, moving on to face the Chiefs. The Chiefs, a very familiar opponent here for the Las Vegas Raiders, which I now cover. And of course, this Super Bowl is going to be just tremendous in terms of so many historical different ways. Two black quarterbacks starting in it. You have the brothers going against each other. Lots of storylines here. But I want to get into the numbers a little bit. It's what you do now. Looking at right now, I've seen the Eagles at Caesars Sportsbook at -2. What do you think about their chances against the spread?
So I think looking at the spread and total as well, all the big plays and player props a little less, but even still with the Super Bowl, right down to the Gatorade color or the coin toss, anything that's being bet is usually mostly being bet on by people who normally don't bet. Meaning, and let me just simplify that, streamline that thought process, which is more people who don't bet throughout the year are betting on this event more so than any other event, any other sporting event right now, arguably anything that you can bet on in this country, at least, right? World Cup, things are a little different outside. But right here, the Super Bowl takes in so much money, public money, uninformed public money, that the market is just going to move because of the sheer amount of dollars that come in. So if you see this spread move from 2.5 back down to a pick 'em and then maybe through to -1, where it did open at some places for the Chiefs, -1, pick 'em elsewhere. Don't go crazy. Don't think, oh my goodness, I lost all this market value. Your position is your confidence level with these two teams. I think the line is pretty sharp, to be honest with you. I think this is a 3-point game. Who wins it may come down to a couple of key things with quarterback play. The one thing I did like, and I saw this drop immediately, and I understood that people don't necessarily think Super Bowls are going to be super high scoring. 51 is a key number for the total. It's the highest, right? If I can get anything below 50.5, or really 50.5 or lower, I'm going to go over that. I'm going to wait and see. I think this can dip at like 46, but whatever the total is, so long as it's below 50.5, and I'm going to wait a little bit because we have 2 full weeks, but I'm going to go over. I'm going to bet over on the total here. That's the biggest one that I have. We're all in Philadelphia, so we have futures tickets on the Eagles every year. Don't let anybody fool you here. So I don't really need to bet the Eagles, but I do think that this game does go over. Both quarterbacks can move the football. Both quarterbacks can narrow a gap if they're down in these games. And look, Nick Sirianni doesn't have the resume of Andy Reid, but Sirianni this year has put on a performance when it comes to being able to score points, especially in a hurry. So I think that's going to help. Both of these defenses have individual players. Eagles are better D than the Chiefs overall, but you can move the ball with those types of quarterbacks, really like the elite in Mahomes and Hurts.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Hurts's performance, saying that it wasn't his best, but obviously he's still dealing with an injury. Do you think the period of time between now to the Super Bowl is enough for him to try to get healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the definition of healthy for me isn't necessarily, is he still dealing with pain? Is he playing hurt? The definition for healthy for me, and especially from a betting standpoint, is does the game plan change, right? Does Nick Sirianni do something different as a result of how much pain Jalen Hurts is going through or how hurt Jalen is? He won't. Nothing will change. Nothing changed on Sunday with the game plan, except it was just it was a bizarre set of circumstances where both of the quarterbacks were knocked out. You didn't have to do a lot with Hurts. You kind of felt if you established a lead of 10 to 14 points, nobody was going to be able to come back under those circumstances that the Niners were dealing with. Heidi, before that, it was the Giants. They match up better with the Giants than any team in the playoffs on both sides, the AFC and the NFC. So Hurts really hasn't had to show out. Nothing is going to change. I can promise you, nothing will change in the game plan for this week, or pardon me, the Super Bowl against Mahomes and that defense, mostly against Spags' defense, because Hurts is fine in that capability.
I'm wondering, there's been quarterback controversies happening here around Las Vegas. I'm sure you're well aware of it, that they're moving on from Derek Carr. And so I wonder, what do you think it is that the Raiders will need at quarterback? Because I think what's happened with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni is they realized in the stretch of games where Hurts wasn't available that Hurts is really, really our guy. He is the future. He's locked in. How do you think the Raiders get to that point?
So I think you're onto it. And it's not a knock on McDaniels or the offense or anything there. It's just a reality, which is you need one of two things in order to kickstart this thing. Because I was talking to a radio station in Nashville about this, and they were thinking about, hey, we got a team here. We just don't really have a quarterback. And we're trying to figure out what that is in Philadelphia that you found. I think you need one of two things. You either need to find a coach who, and I'm not saying Nick Sirianni is this, because he's not, right? He had a hell of a year and he deserves all the accolades for this year, but you need to rehire somebody. You need to bring like Andy Reid from Philadelphia to Kansas City. You need to bring somebody with such and maybe that is Josh McDaniels, right? Who has done that in New England. But you need a coach who is so smart and so able to work around anything that goes wrong with his quarterback or offense that they can scheme out of it. And if you don't have that, then you need a quarterback who can do that for his head coach. And Jalen Hurts is the ultimate safety net, to the point where Nick Sirianni is running stuff you see on Madden because he has the safety net of Jalen Hurts to be like, hey, man, if it doesn't work, he can bail us out, or he can make this work and we look like a genius. So you really right now, you need to find that combination and hope that you get one of two locked in. And look, it's not easy. And I think they got lucky because there were circumstances that pushed the Eagles to draft a quarterback when they did with Jalen Hurts in the second round. But that would be my answer. And it's the holy grail, right? Like, okay, come on. Like, how do you do that? You need to be able to mine that talent so that when they get to the NFL, when they can play and they can grow and all that, they can overcome some coaching deficiencies, or the coach can do the opposite for a newer quarterback.
And the fact that he was benched for Jalen Hurts was benched for Tua. And then moving on to this point now where he's at the pinnacle of the NFL, going into the Super Bowl as a starter. I mean, what a story. When you think about that story, and like you were talking about the development and the pieces that he needed, now he's got Miles Sanders, a solid running back. They have a decent O-line. They've got Dallas Goedert, who's really amazing tight end that I think is a little bit underrated, but probably won't be next year. And then you look at AJ Brown and that trade and how that happened. Just a kind of a lot fall into place that it was really just like, oh, wow, here you go. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think you look at this team, though, initially, the building process started with Carson Wentz. It started with, you mentioned that offensive line. I mean, they have one of the best and deepest offensive lines in the NFL. And they built that for a quarterback. They thought that Carson Wentz was going to be who Jalen Hurts is, right? And how could you not? Because the guy had an MVP season before he got hurt. Nick Foles took over a team that was just loaded, and they went on and won the Super Bowl. We know that life happened, things fell apart, Wentz turned into a pumpkin, etc. But the team, the mentality of it from a team building standpoint was, if you build the trenches, if you allow one or two skilled guys to create some space, if you get some speed guys and then a stable of running backs, the right quarterback makes you a playoff team. The right quarterback puts you in the Super Bowl. And I think that's what the mentality was, where it was like, think about it, right, Heidi, though? Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
Isn't it easier to get all the other positions right and then just hope each time that you get the quarterback spot right, especially if you get him cheap under a rookie deal, as opposed to trying to find a wideout, a left tackle, a cornerback, all these other things. So the Eagles focused a lot on building around the quarterback spot. And yeah, you're right. It just happened to work to a T because they found the perfect fit. Yep.
Just as we begin to start thinking about the combine coming and the draft coming, obviously all the attention for the Raiders will probably be on the quarterbacks there. But if you start to think about just what you saw overall from this Raiders team that is stacked offensively with two players that hit over 1,500 yards on a season, and Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, what would you say is the missing piece?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I think defensively, you want to address areas, right, and make sure that you're not leaving this team in a position where they're having to throw and come back and allow Josh Jacobs to be running downhill a little bit more. Look, if you're bringing in, and I'll tie this to what the quarterback thing direction is. Let's assume they don't get Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's assume that they can't get Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. Things play out, things shake out. And you mentioned Stroud. You mentioned looking at the draft. You have to continue to beef up your offensive line to where protection is not a concern. At the very least, protection can't be a concern. And it's not to say that was the reason why Carr melted. We know that's not, but only, right? But you can't allow a new quarterback to be in a position where he's now trying to beat the NFL and his own offensive line inefficiency.
Eytan, we have to talk a little bit about this Nick Sirianni development and how he grew as a coach and helped to build this team to be what it is now in the Super Bowl, facing the Kansas City Chiefs. I think a lot of people didn't see it coming. We talked a little bit about how he worked with Jalen Hurts and how things came into shape for this team. But was there anything that you felt that Nick Sirianni did that really brought this team to the next level? And how would a team like the Raiders, with Josh McDaniels going into his second year as a head coach for them, try to emulate maybe, or take see that he set maybe a blueprint for them and how to grow?
I think Sirianni, two things. And just to be honest, Sirianni has a loaded football team, right? Like Nick Sirianni's football team is absolutely freaking loaded.
Yeah.
And you have just amazing talent, especially on defense. Not to diminish anything on offense, because that's, I think, more scheme generated their success. But Heidi, this team on defense, 4 separate guys with double-digit sacks, historic on what they're doing. That's not coming from heavy blitzes. That's not coming from anything exotic. That's just grown men winning one-on-one battles. And that's allowing this Eagles team. I mentioned the offensive line, right? Talking about the depth and Lane Johnson all the way through Jason Kelce. I mean, these guys are going to be Hall of Famers, let alone all pros. So when you have all of this talent and then you add in the final ingredient, which is Jalen Hurts, you can take risks. You can push the conventional thinking in the game. You can think outside the box. You can do stuff and know that it's not always going to hurt you as much as it's hurt coaches who wanted to take risks without having that level of talent. It's a fallback. So, yeah, I just want to get that out there because I don't want to start praising Sirianni and somebody being like, oh, come on, man, look at that team, look at that roster. Now, the difference is the set of stones on this man, right? The chutzpah, if you will, on this individual, because what he's done is exactly what I said he could do. And think about this, like a lot of coaches may not have the job security. A lot of coaches may not just have the intestinal fortitude, whatever it is, whatever word or phrase you want to use to describe it, they may not want to take the risk. Sirianni is taking the risk and he's connecting with the player and every other player as a result of that. So it's huge right now for Sirianni to reap these benefits of being able to connect with each and every individual player on his team and also be that risk taker and not look at as like some belligerent, riverboat risk taker. He's taking risks that the players are in tune with. And that's been a huge, huge part of his success.
I feel like my favorite part of the chutzpah. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay. When he's walking down the sideline, I think it was in the divisional round, and he's like, I know where I could be.
Yeah.
To the right. I loved it.
Exactly.
It was great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Giving it to the ref in the middle of a game at home because he knows he's at home and he's got the whole world in Philly behind him. Yeah.
Sure. But in the odds and the props of the Super Bowl, we talked a little bit about the numbers, the spread. I don't think we got into the money line really, but I mean, if you think that, Kansas City Chiefs are going to win, I think it was at minus 110. And then I had a
Yep.
plus 130 for the Eagles, right? Is
Yep.
that right? Yeah. Okay. So sorry, getting it from the expert. Who would you take there on the money line?
Okay, so this is where I think from a betting standpoint, if you like the favorite, then you can lay anything up to 2.5. Meaning if you right now, the Eagles you said at Caesars are -2, right?
Yes.
So that's going to be -110, most likely -2, -110. You're going to lay less juice at -110 than you will at -134, what have you, on the money line. The key number is 3. 14%, Heidi, of games end at 3. And it goes up even higher when the spread is 3 or less. So you don't need to lay anything as far as money line is concerned. You can just take the Eagles -2. So if you like the Eagles, lay the 2 points. If you like the Chiefs, then go on over to where I imagine Caesars would be the best spot since they have the line there at 2, and take the money line for the Chiefs because that is going to bump you up. You don't need those 2 points. We just told you 3 is the key number. Those 2 points won't do you any better. So the Chiefs have a better chance of winning that game outright than covering it by 2, 1.5, 1, what have you. So if you like the dog when the spread is less than 3, take the dog on the money line. If you like the favorite when the spread is less than 3, lay the points.
Okay, first to win, score a touchdown. Excuse me. They have some lines there, and those are always kind of crazy props to take, right? But one of them that I liked was, I think, Dallas Goddard,
Yeah.
and they had Pacheco as, I think, 12-1 to score first. I don't know. I got a feeling about Dallas Goddard. I talked to him earlier. When you look at those numbers, like, what do you think about how these props are set? Like, how, do they just go off of who more than likely is going to run into the end zone first? Like, how do you think they get to these lines?
I think that there is enough data out there where they kind of have to respect it, right? Like, I'm sure if you looked at every team and you saw, well, which guy, somebody's going to lead the team in first touchdowns, right? Like, as far as throughout the season is concerned. So there is some set of data that the books will adhere to so that they don't get totally burned. But the majority of people who are betting on this are probably just betting off gut, right? Betting off, oh, well, it's got to be the. Now, I'm with you, like, because I'm doing the same thing. And you go from gut to head, meaning you go from what your heart tells you, and then you create a narrative to justify what your heart's telling you. I think Travis Kelce will be talked about and blown up in this broadcast so much that the forgotten man is clearly Dallas Goedert. And for him to get on the board early, it makes sense. And I can tell you this, the Eagles will use Goddard, especially to stretch the middle of the field and take some pressure off of some quick throws to back, some screens to A.J. Brown or even Devontae Smith. So, yeah, look, it makes sense. I think he's probably going to get better odds as a first TD scorer than Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. So I would take him. Sure.
So actually, this is from Westgate Superbook. Devonta Smith and Goddard at 12-1. And then Pacheco and AJ Brown are 10-1. That's where I have that. So I finally found them. So I think those are some pretty crazy.
I'll push. If I get the same odds for Smith, I'll take Smith.
Yeah.
But if I get anything better for Goddard, I'll take Goddard.
Okay. So like you're talking like 14-1, 15 or 16?
Even 13-1, I'll take Goddard. Right.
Nice.
Because the thought process is that they shouldn't be equal. So Dallas Goedert, like, that's more of a true number for Smith than I think it would be. And realistically, I'd probably just pass on both because I'm using Smith's number as a gauge for where Goddard's number should be. And if they're equal, something's off to me because Smith has that big play capability. We just saw that against your squad where that was a incomplete pass, but it was ruled as a pass. They will go deep to Smith as soon as the game opens up. So he's got the big play capability. He can break a play as well in the middle of the field. It sounds about right, 12-1. I thought Goddard would be like 14, 15-1. So at 12-1, I probably pass on both. But even at 13-1, I would take a shot on Goddard.
Okay, cool. Last thing, what's your favorite bet in the Super Bowl? What do you think you're gonna pull out of your pocket to lay down? What's your favorite?
All right, all right. I'll give you 3 rapid fire here, okay? In descending order, meaning my least confident one of the 3 would be the Philadelphia Eagles first coaches challenge. Now that's at plus 110 to minus 110. I don't know where they got this stuff from. I saw Andy Reid for 14 years, or at least as the latter part where he was able to challenge, fumble away challenges. Doesn't look like he's mastered that even last week. So Nick Sirianni's super aggressive when it comes to challenging. He's not going to leave points on the field. So I took a flyer on that. The other one I really like is over 23.5 longest reception for guess who? Devontae Smith. That guy is a walking big play. So absolutely love that. My favorite play, it's not going to hit, but put $5 on it. What the heck, right? Any offensive lineman to score a touchdown.
Why not?
Here's the thing. Nick Sirianni is not going to run the old school Philly special, the one that we saw where Nick Foles caught the football, because that's hollowed ground. Like they built a statue for that play. But Nick Sirianni absolutely has 3 other guys on this team who snap the football at center at a collegiate level, and has Jason Kelce, who absolutely has a play designed for him to be eligible and score a touchdown. So Jason Kelce can look over to Travis Kelce and say, I scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl and you didn't. So any offensive lineman to score a touchdown is plus 4,000. Lock it up, Heidi.
$5. Lay it. I'm going to go to the next book on my way to my next thing and do it right now. But Eytan, thank you so much for taking the time to join me join me here today, talk about the Eagles, the Super Bowl, the betting, the Raiders, all of it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Tell everybody listening and watching what you're up to right now.
Easiest thing to do, just follow me on Twitter at Shander Show and go from there. A lot of betting stuff at oddshopper.com, but I tweet all that stuff too. So you are in the place to be when it comes to betting. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to get my stuff out here.
Absolutely. I mean, it may have started here in Vegas, but it's everywhere now. And I love that. I love that it's becoming part of our vernacular, part of our lingo, and part of what people think about from time to time. And, you know, whipping out a big $50 bill to go lay down. That's my big whooping, probably allowance for my bets.
Nice. Nice.
Do they even make $50 bills anymore? I don't know.
I don't know.
Story for another time.
You're old school. You've got a stack of them from your last winning.
All those grants. Laying grants, right. Everybody. Thank you so much again, Eytan.
Thank you.
Eytan Shander. I'm Heidi Fang. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in.